Bonjour ladies, welcome to our brand new topic. We are on the customs and traditions sub-theme of the GCSE course, and the sub-theme is food and drink. Okay, so we begin with food and drink. I know you will notice there's going to be some crossover with health and fitness, which we covered back in the original lockdown. I think Mrs. Hillier took a few of these lessons, or she led some of these lessons to begin with, because I was on paternity leave. So it's an ideal opportunity to jog our memories, which we'll see in a second, and go into a bit more detail. So of course, during this mini module, we'll be looking at recapping food and drink vocab, understanding the French people's attitude to food. We're looking at and recognising demonstrative adjectives. Don't worry about that fancy phrase, we'll get there. And of course, as ever, practicing our exam technique ready for the mocks. Okay, so now that you're watching this video, hopefully you can see the task just before it. If not, you can click on this link and it will take you to the French Moodle page, where you will find the memory jogger activity. It's a very small, some would say basic, drag and drop activity. You saw a lot of this vocabulary for foods back in the original lockdown when you started your GCSE course. So all you need to do on Moodle is drag these words down the side into the appropriate place, and it will self-mark for you. Why? Well, learning a language is about having a fairly decent memory. Now, a memory is like a muscle. You can train it to get better and better. So it'll be interesting to see how much of this you can remember, because it has been, well, almost a year, I would say. See how you do. Alright, so food then can be categorized into food groups. So here we've got les groupes des aliments. You can have les produits laitiers, so dairy products, lait being milk, and of course, I get my biology and food tech on here. Everything like this would fall under this category, les produits laitiers. Next, you might have les céréales. Now, in this context, it's important to understand that I'm talking about grains, not cereal. So, you know, cereal is included, but you've also got things like pastries, breads, that sort of thing. You can have la viande, or les viandes, plural, meats. And finally, les fruits et légumes. Notice the pronunciation of fruits there. Fruit. Tough one to say, looks like English, but sounds totally different. So all you need to do in your book, right, is just make a note of these and what they mean. You've got dairy products, grains, meats, fruit and veg. Because your first task, proper task, is this. Categorise the following foods under the headings from the previous slide. Add the English as well. So for a challenge, if you're looking to push yourself, add as many other foods or drink phrases as you can remember. The le and the la, of course, will need to be correct as well. Now, the words that I'm looking for you to categorise are le saucisson, la pomme, le fromage, le poulet, le yaourt, les carottes, les pêches, le raisin, le lait, les épinards, le jambon, les haricots, le pain, les chips, le riz, la confiture, and les pâtes. If there are one or two here that you are not sure of or you can't remember, of course you can use a dictionary, or you can use wordreference.com. But for now, all you need to do is categorise these words, these food items, under the correct heading. If you can add any others from memory, fantastic. Right, so moving on. Now I know this says grammar and you've got grammar books, but you can do this in your big books. When we are talking about foods in French, when we name them, we use the following words. Un ou une, meaning a. Yeah? Or le, la, les, or L apostrophe, meaning the. Now this is basic. We know this. Now when we name foods, oh, look at that, it is a, I don't know, a strawberry. C'est une fraise. Perfect. But when we want to say I eat, there's a slight change into these words, and I'll demonstrate for you now. For example, je mange, and it's a masculine food. That le would change to do. So for example, je mange du yaourt. I eat yogurt. If it's feminine, it'll change to de la. If it's plural, it'll be de. And if it's L apostrophe, it'll be D apostrophe. Now, the important thing is why. What is the reason? I think it just sounds better to the French ear, and as non-native French people, it's quite difficult to get our heads around that. But basically, and this helps me remember it, all of these words here, du, de, la, de, and D apostrophe, they mean some. Je mange du pain, I eat some bread. We wouldn't have to include the word some in English. I eat bread, I eat some bread. It's kind of the same thing, but we don't need the word some. It always has to be included in French. Wish I knew the reason why, but that's where we're at. It is what it is. Okay. Some examples here just to show it, right? We've got je mange le beefsteak. This doesn't work to a French person. Sounds a bit odd. Now, beefsteak is steak. That le would change to do. And if you're French, that sounds so much better. Je mange du beefsteak. Moving on to a feminine one. Je mange la soupe. Doesn't sound quite right to a Frenchie. Quick change. Je mange de la soupe. I eat some steak. I eat some soup. Oignon there being an onion. Je mange l'oignon. Je mange de l'oignon. It flows better. I eat some onion. Of course you do. They're French. Je mange les carottes. No. Je mange des carottes. Some carrots. Happy days. So, moving on. There's going to be something slightly different. When we want to say I don't eat, these words again have to change. It's all fun and games. So, je ne mange pas. Are you seeing the difference? Again, for some reason, not do anymore, or de la, or de. Just de. Je ne mange pas de whatever. Je ne mange pas de whatever. Je ne mange pas de whatever. There's your difference. This takes practice, and the more you see it, the more you'll get used to it. Je ne mange pas de beefsteak. Je ne mange pas de soupe. Je ne mange pas d'oignon. Je ne mange pas de carottes. There it is in as an example. Okay, so this information goes in your book. You can feel free to go back and rewind as often as you like. Okay, so we begin with a GCSE exam style write-in task. So this would be on the foundation paper probably. We'll walk before we can run. And it's going to ask you, écris-en-moi une phrase au sujet des points suivants. Now the main issue here is what on earth does that mean? Well, it's asking you to write at least one phrase about the following points. Now what's a phrase? A sentence or two then. We want you to write ce que tu aimes manger et pourquoi. Ce que tu n'aimes pas manger et pourquoi. Ce que tu as mangé hier. Ce que tu vas manger ce soir. Right. I'm hoping that you can figure out more or less what these mean, but I'm going to introduce you to this little phrase here, ce que. It means what. What you like to eat and why. Ce que tu aimes manger et pourquoi. what you don't like to eat and why. Ce que tu n'aimes pas manger, pourquoi. Ce que tu as mangé hier, what you ate yesterday. Now think about the tense here. We are proper clued up on what tense this is. And again, think about the tense for the last one. What will you eat tonight? So we're looking for a phrase on each of these points. Where you might struggle, and it's always the case, is starting. J'aime manger. I like to eat. Je n'aime pas manger. I don't like to eat. Hier, yesterday, j'ai mangé, I ate. And ce soir, je vais manger, I am going to eat. And then the rest of it is up to you. Details, isn't it? Whatever you want to include. Now, you want to show off, right? You want to show what you know, link words and so on and so forth. Due to the nature of the questions here, you're going to cover your tenses. Yeah. This is present tense, j'aime manger, I like to eat. This is past, this is future, it is what it is. So you're going to cover all of that. So see what you can come up with, type it all up, and see how you do. Moving on then to a higher tier style task for reading. Now then, here it is. I'm going to read it out to you. We're going to start with les salades. La salade est un repas bien équilibré et on peut ajouter des fécules comme le riz, les pommes de terre ou les pâtes. Cependant, il faut faire attention aux salades déjà préparées au supermarché. Quelquefois, elles contiennent des sauces avec de la matière grasse ou du sucre. Il faut toujours lire les étiquettes. So that's someone talking about the pros and cons of salads. Au snack. Tous les snacks ne sont pas si mauvais pour la santé. Si tu en veux, de temps en temps, mange un hot dog ou une pizza avec du jambon et des champignons ou ananas. Bois de l'eau ou un jus de fruits et surtout évite les frites. So this paragraph is giving you advice on what to do with regards to snacking. And finally then, les sandwichs. Les baguettes sont délicieuses, mais fais attention à ce qu'il y a dedans. Choisis des baguettes sans mayonnaise. Le bœuf ou le jambon avec de la salade est le meilleur pour la santé. Le fromage contient trop de matière grasse. So your first task there would be to have a good read. You don't have to listen to me again if you don't want to, but have a read and find these words. We always do a little bit of this, right? Because it makes you read those texts again. Now they do go in order. Alright? They do go in order. If you can find those, great. It'll help you to understand the text a little bit more before you move on to the actual main GCSE style task, which is this. Asking you to read the 3 healthy lunchtime choices, great. Choose the 5 correct sentences. There are 10 sentences here. Only 5 of them are correct based on what you've read here. Now all you've got to do is put a tick or true or whatever next to them. You don't need to correct the false ones. You don't need to do that. Just take the 5 correct sentences. Okay. Alright, now moving on again to a speaking/written task. Now I can almost hear the moans and the groans, alright? I'll get there. We can't avoid speaking practice, and it's been really difficult over this period of online learning, and it's something that I am not worried about, but it's something that we need to bear in mind. The speaking element of the course is going to form a quarter of your grade. Therefore, it's essential that we practice as much as we can and take it seriously. However, it's not all doom and gloom. You aren't expected to sound fully French at this stage. You can make mistakes and still get your A's and A stars. Now I'm going to focus on an element of the speaking exam called the photo card. You will see a photo card. It will be the second task of your speaking exam. Now this photo is meant to provoke debate. It's meant to stimulate a response. It's meant to get you thinking. It's very much a lottery. Okay, French and Spanish teachers aren't a big fan of this element of the task because, well, as I said, it's such a lottery. You can either have a picture which is perfect for provoking debate, or you can get one which is completely random and really hard to talk about. Now I'm going to show you this one. This is your photo card. There she is. Now she's got a choice to make. Cupcake, I think it's a cupcake, isn't it? Or the apple. And look at her face. The other good thing about speaking is that you can go for foundation questions or higher tier. Completely up to you. Now, the foundation questions will look like this. The first one will be Décris cette photo. For higher tier, it'll say Qu'est-ce qui se passe sur cette photo? To be honest, guys, that means exactly the same thing. Number one on the photo card is always describe this photo. Tell me what you can see. Why is higher tier different? Because it's a little bit more wordy. Literally it's saying what is going on in this photo, what's happening in this photo, which is effectively describe it. So your opening task is going to be the same no matter what you do. Number two then. Manges-tu sainement? Pourquoi or pourquoi pas? Literally the same question, whether you're foundation or higher. They're asking you, do you eat healthily? Why or why not? Happy? Okay. Now, in the real exam, in the mock as well, you will have time to prepare your answers to these questions. Right? So you can go off, you can write down your answers, you can make any notes you want, and there they are. You've got ready-made answers. You can bring that into your exam with you then. But here's the twist, here's the horrible part. I then have to ask you two further questions which you have not seen. Puts you on the spot. So, let's discuss that then. You're going to have time, it says here 12 minutes. If I'd done this in class, I would have given you the full 12 minutes, but you can take as long as you like, I suppose, since I'm not with you. Prepare your answers now for the first two questions, so answer them for me. What can you see? You cannot write full sentences, but you can make notes in your preparation, so keywords like sentence starters, irrelevant vocabulary, etc. would be ideal. I would like you to turn this into your actual answers for 1 and 2. Now then, the unseen questions, don't panic about those. Yes, it takes all of the control out of you when you have no idea what's coming up, but you've got to use your brain. No matter the topic, they've got to be related to what's in the picture. So think, what might be a logical thing to be asked? Well then, here we go. If you are going to choose the foundation set of questions, my next unseen question that I'd like you to prepare an answer to is J'aime manger à la cantine. Que penses-tu? I like to eat in the canteen. Que penses-tu? What do you think? What do you think about that? And finally, Qu'est-ce que tu as mangé hier? For higher tier, Manger sainement est trop cher. Que penses-tu? Eating healthily is too expensive. What do you think? And my last question for higher tier. Que ferais-tu pour améliorer ta santé? Now here you should be able to see the difference. Well, the difference and the similarities between the two. So the first unseen question would be this one. And this one. It's always a statement. A controversial statement. Not necessarily controversial to like eating in the canteen, but it's meant to be a statement and then you've got to give your opinion. So my statement here at Foundation, it's quite an easy bit of French, isn't it? J'aime manger à la cantine. I like to eat in the canteen. What's your opinion? The difference at higher tier is that it's just a slightly more higher level sentence. Manger sainement est trop cher. What do you think? Still asking for your opinion. There we go. Now, for foundation tier, the last unseen question, you're likely to be asked something in the past tense. Qu'est-ce que tu as mangé hier? Now, luckily for us, if you are doing foundation, you've already literally answered this question today, in the very first task. So as long as you can answer this question effectively, correctly in the past tense, you're going to be alright. Where it gets a little bit more difficult for you higher tier people is that this question is likely to be in the conditional or the future tense. Que ferais-tu pour améliorer ta santé? They're going to use some more sophisticated language. Now this verb améliorer you probably have not seen before. It means what would you do in order to improve your health? So once again, remember the key components of answering a question when on the spot. Take from the question. Hier, j'ai mangé. Pour améliorer ma santé. And then whatever it is that you would do. So, just to make it clear, hopefully you can now see the difference between the two tiers. And what I would like from you is your written answers to those 4 questions. Whether you're choosing foundation or higher tier is completely up to you. Now, there is no worksheet for you to work on. I'd like to do all of your work on a Word document and then email it to me. And we will go from there. I am online, I'm on the team if you need me. Or you can email me your questions if you don't want to type in there. But that is that. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.